All set. Okay, welcome to the June 23rd, 2025 Town of Ithaca Board Meeting. Nice summer evening. We will start with an update from Shauna Black, a Tompkins County legislator. So Shauna, maybe you can just remind us if your district changed at all and if you have any competition. I should know that, but just remind us of that. And then I know you've got a few things you're going to update us on. So thank you for being with us.
Yeah, thanks, Rod, for inviting me. It's always great to have open communication between the county and the town, and we always enjoy your updates as well. Rich DiPaolo joined us a few months, and you come to our meetings often, and so it's always good to see you. I currently have District 11 in the legislature, and right now my district encompasses Northeast, Forest Home, and a little bit of South Hill. Um, as of January of 2026, my new district will be only part of Northeast and all of Cuga Heights. So mine will change quite a bit. And we're going from 14 districts to 16. And so we're adding two new legislators. I am uncontested for this race. And my assumption is we're probably going to see 9 to 10 new legislators. So there's definitely going to be a steep learning curve with the county, and I would ask for your patience because having 9 or 10 new legislators is probably going to be a rough first year or so as we get grounded and teach the new people how things in the county work. So I'm happy to give some updates and then also happy to answer any questions you might have. Many of you know that we are moving forward with a center of government, and that's going to happen where the Key Bank building is, as well as the Wiggins Law Building on Tioga Street there. And we just voted to deconstruct those two buildings. Ideally, reuse is going to step in and help with that. And we're going to donate everything that might be reusable to reuse. And everything else will be knocked down, and we're starting from the ground up. We've gone over and over about what departments are going to go where in our new building. I think we're probably going to land with around 4 floors and around 40,000 square feet. At one point pre-COVID, we were quoted with the building costing around 30 million. Last figures I heard, I think we're probably going to be up to 45 to $50 million for this new building. So a lot of money, and we have also have concerns about where people are going to park. So we are doing a parking study. There have been also other conversations about if we actually want to have that building in downtown Ithaca. And the consensus, at least at this point, is that we do want to move forward with that. The next announcement or update is on our shelter. Many of us, a few of us actually went on a shelter tour last week. We visited a shelter in Broome County as well as a shelter in Rochester. And we did an RFQ for those that would be shelter providers. And we're going to discuss that tomorrow in a working group. The shelter is going to be located off of Cherry Street. At one point, we were looking at doing a collaboration with the city of Ithaca, and even perhaps they have a little plot of land at the end of Cherry Street, but that didn't work out. And so the county is going to move forward and do that by herself. And essentially, we had also talked about partnering with some other nonprofits. I think that's still on the table. We would like to have DSS come to that building, as well as other nonprofits come to that building to offer services to people that might be residents there. Let's see here. The next update is in regards to our budget. We did approve a resolution to go over our tax cap. What we're seeing right now is that our revenues are pretty flat. And so in order to maintain the same effort that we are providing and the same services right now, more than likely we are going to have to raise taxes. So that's kind of the bad news of my updates here. We're also looking at what it's going to look like in 2026. We've been threatened by the federal government that There are going to be some Medicaid cuts. They are going to require some work requirements, and that has us very concerned for people in Tompkins County. We know that around 17,000 people in our county receive Medicaid benefits. And so we've been talking about what that looks like if many of our constituents don't have that insurance. Um, I don't think we would be able to fill up the gap alone. I know that the state, our legislators voted for the state budget, and it seems like there's conversations to actually reconvene, possibly in the fall, and approve some spending if there's some shortfalls in Medicaid. Another announcement is that we have approved around $35,000 to do a rapid medical response study. As many of you know, we started a rapid medical response in our rural areas, and I think that's been very successful. I think what many of us would like to do is actually expand that so that it's not just a Monday through Friday program from 10 to 6. Many of us would like to see it happen in the evenings as well as on the weekends. We notice that there is a decrease of people that are volunteering to provide EMT services and life-saving services in our community. And I guess the great debate right now is if the county should pay for it, if the individual municipalities should pay for it, and even amongst the legislators, there's definitely a difference of opinion. I'm not sure that this will get figured out with this legislature that we have right now. More than likely, it'll run over to the next legislature that we have. The study should probably have results over the next 8 weeks or so. So stay tuned on that. Right now, we are funded by the work that's been done by Senator Leah Webb. She provided us with $300,000 of funds in order to support our efforts right now for the rapid um, uh, program that we have right now. Let's see here. Another thing that just approved is that we are increasing the number of IDA members we have from 7 to 9. And I ended up writing the resolution for that with the whole idea that we would have someone from the school board join us and be part of the conversation. I'm sorry, not the school board, but actually someone from the school districts. So the first time it might be from ICSD. The next year it might be someone from Lansing or Trumansburg or Dryden, so that they can have some say, since ideally the IDA is the one that is abating taxes and predominantly school taxes, since those seem to be the highest. The other seat that we would like to see on the IDA and secured and codified is someone from the unions on the IDA, and they currently have a seat right now. So I think those are my updates. I am absolutely would welcome questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Shauna. And certainly I've been keeping the board updated on the emergency services because the city and the town are going to have to be part of this discussion in ways that perhaps we hadn't anticipated a few years. So stay tuned on that. So questions for Shauna? Rich?
Hi, Shauna. Do you have a preliminary idea of the timeline for deconstruction of the Key Bank and Wiggins buildings?
My understanding is that it will probably be happening within the next 3 to 6 months.
Okay, it's going to make life interesting down here.
It really, really is. And I know that we're using our space on Tioga Strait, where we thought we were going to build the center of government, as a staging zone to do that work. And I mean, I think we realize also that we're trying to be a good partner. We're trying not to create too much havoc or mess, but it is going to be pretty messy.
Do you anticipate any road closures?
I have not heard of any. I mean, the Key Bank building is probably 90% concrete. I mean, it's the most structurally sound building that in all of Ithaca, or probably in all of Tompkins County. I think it could probably be a bunker. So knocking that down is going to be a mess.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and hopefully the price tag won't keep going up, but.
I know. I went to our NISAC meeting, and it was interesting because one of the some of the comments that I was hearing from the economists were that over the next 6 months, right now, the market is all over the place, but the bids that they're seeing for many of the projects are all over the place because contractors have no idea where the cost of plywood's going to be, where concrete's going to be, where steel. With the tariffs, there's just no telling, and so their prediction was that over the next 6 months, there's really not going to be much building because contractors can't give very good estimates, and so many of them are just not putting in applying or doing RFPs and RFQs at all.
Other questions? Thank you very much, Shauna. That was great. We appreciate it. And I sent a written report today. I did something different, so I don't know if you've received it yet.
I did. Thank you.
So, because it's hard, as you know, to say too much in these short updates, but you managed to give us quite an overview. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Okay, bye now.
Bye-bye.
And I'll just mention Rob Rosen is absent this evening, but great. So moving on to an update on draft revisions to our short-term rental legislation. And you have a memo in your packet from CJ. The idea is that we want to mention these things with quite a bit of advance notice before there's a public hearing. So I think we're hoping to have the public hearing on August 11th. You'll notice the last paragraph of her memo really gives you kind of the main change for this. And then you also got the local law and a highlight of where the change would occur. So the planning committee has talked about this. Looks like several days. I didn't realize we had talked about this that many times, like 5 or 6 times. So CJ, anything you want to just mention, highlight from your memo?
Just that, in addition to at the time, the 5 occasions upon which the planning committee looked at this, I vaguely mentioned the maps of these areas, but I want to mention also that our prior GIS analyst, Ben Coakley, prepared a set of maps of the conservation areas at different sizes, and then Max followed up with a separate set of maps. So we looked at these, I think, pretty carefully. So I defer to anything else that
Rich, anything you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I think as with a lot of these changes, this was an issue that was brought to our attention by a resident. And rather than rush into this, we took our time and looked at what we anticipate a potential impact would be. And since conservation is so low zoned and the setbacks are kind of naturally built into the environment there, we felt that waiving the principal residency requirement while retaining all of the other restrictions in our other zones would be kind of a prudent way to take a step forward without opening the gates to booming hospitality business in an area that is primarily designed for conservation and open space preservation. So this is kind of the result of that balancing test, and we'll hopefully, if we move forward, we'll take a look at it in a year and either feel good or make some changes. So that's where we're at.
And it's amazing that it really is 2 fairly minor changes to the law. So that's highlighted for you in red. So questions, comments?
Yes, I have a question. I remember way back, one of the prime considerations for the town board and enacting this law was to protect our housing stock. And do we have any potential for that to be a problem in the conservation zone, or is there really not housing the same way?
Yeah, I mean, the way we tried to foreclose on that outcome was to limit the waiver to existing structures so that people couldn't build new structures. Now, I suppose you could, if the numbers worked for you, you could buy an existing structure and turn it into a rental, but we've still retained the 29-day per year allowance. So the numbers in most cases probably wouldn't work. They wouldn't incentivize acquisition of property solely for that purpose. That's our
Okay.
hope anyway.
So I guess maybe I'm a little bit confused. So if it's still 29 days, why if there's still a 29-day limit on unhosted rentals, what are we doing? What's the change we're
Well,
making?
okay, the background here is that there are folks who own more than one property, spend some part of the year here and then winter in Florida, for example, that type of thing. And people who want to keep their houses in the family, but also find that they're sort of not being allowed to avail themselves of the same income opportunities as other people because they don't, the Ithaca residence is not their principal residence. So it's just vacant most of the time. These are folks who primarily want to entertain guests for, while they're out of town. They don't live here. So while they're out of town for up to 29 days, it's not really, it's just an offset, a sort of a mortgage, I guess a tax offset for them. So it's not, the only thing we're changing is the principal occupancy waiver. It's not the number of days. So hopefully by not expanding the number of days or just by allowing the same level of oversight, you know, they're still gonna need to have a sort of principal contact person, someone who can answer complaints within an hour. All of these other things are gonna be in place. The only thing that's different is the principal residency requirement.
But I thought if you hosted in your primary residence, you didn't have a limit.
Yeah, but this isn't there. What I'm saying is that we're allowing people to own properties that are not their principal residence
Oh.
and still operate them as short-term rentals in a limited fashion.
And this is only in the conservation zone?
Yeah, at this point, that's what we're doing.
I do remember someone who had something, I think
Right.
in the Northeast, and he was very vocal against this law. I think he actually had the sheriff come here.
I don't remember that, but I
Hearing.
do remember it was quite contentious.
Yeah.
There also, you know, we were considering including conservation with lakefront residential at one point in time with all of those
Sure.
allowances as well. So this is a much more incremental approach to that rather than just saying, fine, lakefront and conservation are the same. Their purposes are different. The conservation zone is largely open space and you know, preservation. And so we don't want to do anything that's going to change that, the purpose of that zone. But we do think that this may allow people to get some, people who don't live here year round, may allow them to get some income in a way that doesn't change the underlying, you know, the character of the zone, essentially.
So the only difference is that the properties in the conservation zone would essentially be treated as hosted, even if they're hosted.
Well, they wouldn't be treated as hosted. They'd be treated as though they were principally occupied. They'd be treated as unhosted rentals in all other ways. You still have the 29 days per year. You still have the notification requirements. You still have setback requirements and all the permitting inspections, all that stuff. You're still subject to all those requirements. The only difference is it's you don't have to, for tax purposes, that isn't your principal residence. You could live somewhere else and own up to one additional property that isn't your principal residence and still operate it as a short-term rental in a limited fashion. So that's the only difference. But for all intents and purposes, from a regulatory standpoint, the only difference is it would be treated as an unhosted rental because they wouldn't be there when the rentals were taking place and they'd still be subject to the 29 days. Whereas people who operate hosted rentals don't have any limitation on the number of days. So.
And we did look carefully at maps to see how many places this might impact, and it was a fairly limited number. I don't
Really,
know.
just a handful of.
Well, that's what I thought.
Not
That was my
many.
really initial question is it
Yeah.
really gonna? make a
And I think
difference?
we were prepared to
Yeah.
pop up a map if you want to see
Mm.
a map. Is anyone interested? You want to see? Okay. We have them if anyone wants to see the maps. Any other questions? So again, there's no action item today. It was really just to bring this to your attention so that you're not surprised when you see us setting a public regarding this. But if you look at it further and you have questions, let us know. Moving on to the next item, this is consider approval to apply for a Park Foundation grant. This is a Forest Home Update Traffic Calming Plan. So Some of you may have been around long enough that you know there was a Forest Home traffic calming plan in 2007. Recently, we have re-engaged with the Forest Home community to talk about ways to slow down traffic going through Forest Home and making it safer for not only those in cars, but pedestrians and bicyclists as well. It's a unique part of our town with some challenges. So it's been an interesting discussion. We think that it's important to initiate a new study. 2007 was quite a long time ago, and some of the factors have changed. So again, there's a memo from CJ kind of outlining this, and then a resolution to that we can submit this grant application to the Park Foundation. CJ, anything you want to highlight from your memo?
I would just say that we would anticipate, and I think this might be significantly different from the first iteration in 2007, but a significant, really robust public engagement process as part of that, and to really do our best to come to some consensus. And these gentlemen, of course, can also share their additional thoughts on that in this particular community, but just wanted to mention that that was is anticipated and forecast to be a significant part of the budget for that project.
And I think there's been a recognition that it would be difficult to reduce the traffic going through Forest Home. So hence the goal is slowing traffic down, making it safer. I mean, certainly if there's ways to reduce the traffic going, but that's not the key goal. And so we've had quite a bit of dialogue with they have a committee that we're working with. Joe, Dave, CJ, and I meet with them on a fairly regular basis. And they are in agreement that it really makes sense to initiate a study before we come up with a plan to implement some of the recommendations. Yes, Rich?
Is there an assumption that this study is grant dependent at this point, or are we considering footing the bill entirely if we don't get the grant?
We would come back, if we don't get this grant, we'll come back to the board to make that decision. Because we don't know the answer to that. So as you can see, the town would be on the hook for some funding. CJ, I forget whether we had looked and how we came up with the number of what we think a planning study is going to cost, but somehow we settled on like 175,000.
Yeah, we, amongst, from discussions amongst us would be community and stakeholder relations coordination. And as you know, there's, I would say, a lengthy list of coordination to do in the Forest Home community, not just Forest Home Improvement Association, but you have everything from DOT, county highway, town, NICEAG, Bolton Point, Cornell University, Botanic Gardens. I'm sure I've missed somebody. It goes on and on and on. Oh, of course, IFD. I'm thinking Town of Dryden also because we have the Freeze Road Bridge question. So anyway, there's a lot of people to even attempt to coordinate. And then the background research of that, evaluating the road geometries, counts, utility locations, alternatives analysis, things of that nature. And then, of course, all the renderings, graphics, visualization. And then something that didn't happen in the 2007 traffic calming study was an actual implementation matrix and real actual cost estimates. Those, for whatever reason, weren't included in that. And I think that's a really important piece that we would need to include for future actual transportation funding grants, should we choose to take that next step. So that's really where that all comes from.
And we've really been consistent in saying we don't want to just try little things here and there. We really want to get a comprehensive picture and then figure out. I mean, there are a couple of things happening in Forest Home this summer, but it's like repaving a section, right, Joe?
Yeah, we aren't looking to change too much in there. Maybe a couple little cross slopes, take care of some puddles, playing around with some striping of the edge lines, things of that nature, getting the crosswalks up to snuff. So not much change.
And we had considered submitting for a CFA application, but we had already committed to a number, so we just had to be realistic that just from a time perspective, we weren't able to work on another CFA application. And we've been clear with the Forest community that much of this is going to be dependent on monies coming to support the work. Any other questions or comments? Would someone like to move the resolution authorizing us to apply for funding through the Park Foundation for this project? The applications are due July 8th. Are we moving along? July 8th isn't that far
No.
away anymore.
That's why we need the okay.
Okay. I'll move the resolution. Would someone like to second? Susie, any further comments? All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Moving on to authorization for supervisor to sign a campus-wide stormwater operation maintenance and reporting agreement, otherwise known as SOMRA. I heard SOMRA mentioned before, and I was like, what is SOMRA? Oh, I know. And stormwater related easement associated with the Hugo Medical Center. I think the resolution spells it out pretty clearly. This is a type 2 regarding seeker. So it's really taking a number of easements and putting them together in one document and revising our agreements. Is that, Dave, what do you want to add to that? Probably
No,
too
it's-
simplified.
No, that's pretty much it, bringing a lot of existing agreements together and adding, they needed to do a new one this year for the upcoming project. So since we were already revising or doing an agreement, they wanted to do all this at once, so it makes the town side a lot easier, it's less documents we have to keep track of. And it makes it more enforceable and a lot more access for us as well.
And I forget, has Susan started reviewing these?
Guy has them
Guy,
right now.
okay.
They'll probably end up in a slightly different form, because he's got an updated form. But the context will be similar.
And so the resolution does say subject to review by the attorney. So would someone like to move the resolution? Eric, is there a second? Pam, questions, comments? All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. This is a study session. So moving on to, some of these will be very easy. Eric, is there a report from budget?
Budget did not meet this.
So stay tuned for a robust report in July. Moving on to personnel and organization, ERC.
Yeah, so we just met before this meeting, and we discussed a variety of topics I'm pulling up. One of them is the, well, not exactly what we did, but we do, before I discuss what happened at our meetings, we do have the approval of the revised classification list and criteria, and what that was about is that Judy took a good hard look at our job classifications and made some revisions based on, where it seemed that it was more appropriate for people to be, which level they are, which affects their pay. So,
Do you want us to act on that and then you can give?
yeah,
the
let
rest of
me,
the
let me
report?
move that we approve the revised classifications list and criteria.
Is there a second?
Second.
Margaret, was that?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. And there is a memo from Judy related to that as well as the new criteria. So are there questions or comments about this? There was a lot of work on Judy's part.
It looks really well done. Beautiful.
Did you hear that, Judy?
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of approving this new job classification criteria rating system and the job classification listing for the office and field systems, raise your hand or say aye.
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 unanimous.
Okay, and just to continue on, we take those reclassified positions and talk about our wage scales and cost of living adjustment percentage. That's what we were working on today. And the Personnel Committee has now forwarded that over to the Budget Committee for incorporation into our proposed 2026 budget. Same thing for the wage scales, which is just essentially just, you know, you start at a certain rate, but then you eventually, after I think 2 years, you get to a job rate and things like that. So Judy provided us with a bunch of documents that talked about how our wages are going to look in 2025 based on these revised classifications, and that will be considered by the Budget Committee. We also reviewed our staffing plans. Every year, the department heads are asked to provide a staffing plan for the next 4 years. And so we looked at our staffing plans through 2026, and there were no major adjustments. Some positions to be filled or slightly rearranged, but we're not significantly. I don't think we're increasing the size of our workforce at all. Were we increasing?
Yes, by 2, 1.
So small increase in the size of our workforce. And we also have been undertaking a project since the beginning of the year to review the board protocol and procedures manual. We're editing a chapter a month or so and just taking a look at making sure things are still accurately reflect the way we do business and our clear communication to anyone who's going to be reading that. So it's a little bit of a painstaking detail, but we're pushing through. That's where we are on personnel. And
And-
employee relations has not met. We'll meet again in August.
Huh?
No, August, yes.
Moving on to Public Works, we met on June 17th. We reviewed the proposed 2026 fleet replacement schedule. We reviewed the 2026 capital improvements project. There's still some information that will be brought to the next Public Works Committee related to that. We authorized signing a shared services agreement for 1 year with New York State Department of Transportation. We set a date for Public Works Facility Open House, which will be September 13th.
September 13th.
Okay, so we hope you and your families and friends will come to that. We're hoping to reach out to the Sheriff's Department. Who else are we reaching out to?
We're gonna go with the Sheriff's Department, IFD.
That's exciting. The engineering department now puts together these project updates. So they were in your packet. We're not going to go through them, but if you see questions about them, feel free to reach out to Dave or ask myself. But thank you, Dave, for preparing those. There's, I think, 4 or 5 in your packets. We had other brief updates. The MEP project is almost done at the Public Works facility. Dave is working on the town hall weatherization project. Anything, Rich, you want to mention from Public Works?
I was late.
Oh, so he has to he's got to come up with a town mascot and wear a costume
Apparently I'm
at the
being
open
changed.
house. Have you decided what the mascot's going to be yet?
It's still under deliberation.
Okay. Moving on to planning.
All right, well, planning had a relatively straightforward agenda. We took a look at the revised resolution in support of a Vision Zero policy regarding multimodal transportation initiatives, and that was something that the board looked at at its June meeting. We also sort of tightened up the short-term rental modifications that you all were just introduced to. And the only thing that is still outstanding from that meeting is that we are are still looking at the law to require pilot agreements for community solar, large scale solar systems. And there were some outstanding questions that will hopefully be answered that will enable us to put that before you. CJ, maybe you can remind me, is that going to be coming back to planning, or did we?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like Scott Crow to be able to answer those questions for you, which I was unable to answer. I
Right,
don't know much about real property tax law.
right.
Well, it's.
And we're not meeting,
Agree.
we're not meeting this month
That's right.
for lack of large enough agenda. So hopefully we'll get back together in July.
And Rich, since you have the floor, you had given kind of an update last time on the Ithaca area wastewater treatment facility. I don't think there's anything else to say.
There's not
about it,
much
Jason.
more to report there. We're going to request, the SJC on behalf of the municipal owners is going to request the technical and regulatory record supporting the potential Speedy's permit modification. We're going to make that request to 4 individuals at DEC, and then the technical record is going to be reviewed by our consultant and then disseminated to members and staff as needed. So that's, I'm going to actually send that request out after this meeting, and then we'll see what becomes of that. We were told that it's fairly informal. We're operating on a sort of collaborative basis at this point, and hopefully we'll have a robust enough record to be able to come to conclusions regarding the justification for the request. So.
Okay. I do not believe that codes and ordinances met this month, right? Okay. Parks and Trails, we can probably take that off. There's not been a long time since there's really been a committee. I know that there's a couple of staff members still working on updating our Parks and Trails plan, which may be ready by the end of the year.
We
Maybe,
are
right.
certainly hoping, well, we've had a lot of, relative to Parks and Trails, we have the Babcock Ridge Trail, of course, everybody knows, the Black Diamond Trail, the recent land purchase agreement. We're waiting to hear back on Accavelli Park on whether we won that grant. We also have the South Hill Preserve acquisition. We're still working on some details, but, and then of course, the South Hill Recway extension. What's it called now? Cottington Valley Trail or?
Maybe, we haven't decided.
So there's a lot of action, yeah.
And usually that gets now discussed at either Public Works or a planning.
Cool.
Economic development meets very infrequently. We haven't had any meetings recently. Just some other updates. We continue to work with the city to start our dialogue about the fire contract for the next 5 years. So I need to follow up with Deb again to see how soon we can schedule a meeting with the firm that we want to use, CGR. And we're still, I think we're getting closer and working with the city on a historic preservation MOU and ordinance. Are there any other committees for which there's updates? Any of the youth committees, any updates on?
No, I mean, I think that we're going to be helpful for them if we could provide them with some sort of a preliminary idea of what we plan to be doing year over year, so they can formulate their request in a timely fashion. Also, it might be worth mentioning that, shifting gears, it might be worth mentioning that looks like we have a meeting set up with the city of Ithaca to discuss the Village of Cayuga Heights plant-to-plant agreement. This is an agreement that allows our facility to accept overflow sewage from Cayuga Heights. Everything flows downhill, so everybody kind of has to work together. And at this point, it looks like we're going to be pursuing a bilateral agreement with Cayuga Heights, whereas in the past there had been the owners had been involved, and we sort of re-examined the underlying intermunicipal agreement, and it looks like we have the ability to form a two-party agreement that would be more, I think, equitable in terms of costs and revenues. So that looks like that might happen in mid-July. There'll be more after we have that meeting, will be an update about that.
Other reports on committees? Yes.
Not a report from a committee, but, at my other job, we did pass this Stony Park bill through both houses.
Great, thank you very much. Anything else committee related? Now moving on to consent agenda. Would someone like to move the consent agenda? Pretty straightforward.
I'll move that.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Pam seconds. All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Other reports, I'll just remind folks that we are a member of the Chamber of Commerce. I do get, newsletters and whatnot from them. If you want me to forward them on to town board members, I will. There are always events, business after 5 events that we're welcome to attend. So anyway, just reminding folks that we are a member of the Chamber of Commerce and can tap into them, can go to their events.
I'm on the board of the Chamber of Commerce. There is quarterly, we have a coffee talk with local government. I do go.
So thank you. I forgot, Susie, that you're on that, so that's good. Other updates?
I know, right?
Anything else? If not, we'll go ahead and adjourn